In the last week, we have brought in three brand new clients that came from LinkedIn. This after having spent the last 9 years of my business building my brand on Facebook and then finally making a decision to switch over to a new platform. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through why I made that decision, what happened, and how we've been able to rapidly succeed on a brand new platform, even though I didn't know much about it and did not have much of an audience there either. This episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to get a bit more personal in sharing with you some of the things that I have experienced in my own business from just a personal perspective. So, the first thing that I need you to understand is that I have spent the last literally 9 years of my business building my brand on Facebook. Facebook for me is an absolutely incredible platform. I feel like it still works today. I still run ads through Facebook and I'm really successful using Facebook for ads. However, as time has gone on, I just felt something inside of me telling me that there was a different direction. In the beginning, I did not feel much of a connection towards building my brand on LinkedIn. As an online brand strategist, as an online coach, I feel like a lot of coaches do really well on Facebook, and this is still very much true today. And therefore, I spent a lot of my time building my brand there, like literally, right? Doing all the things, building an audience, creating a Facebook group, going into other communities as well, building my presence, creating content, and really showing up. And it had been really effective in my life, in my business, and all the things that I was doing. However, in July of 2024, something changed. And the thing is that it was nothing within the platform that was the problem. The platform still works. I have still a lot of clients who are very successful using Facebook. It wasn't that, it was something within me. I just felt a calling to go in a different direction. While I had used LinkedIn in the past before, it had been something that was more like, like a should, right? I should be building my brand on LinkedIn. And back in, I believe, 2019, 2020, I had hired a company to help me build an audience on LinkedIn. And I had a few followers in there, but it wasn't anything substantial. And it was definitely not bringing me any clients because I was not active on the platform at all. So it was just me kind of copying, pasting content and just dumping it in LinkedIn. And that was about it, not really paying much attention. I just didn't feel called to the platform. There was something that felt off. However, that same feeling was a feeling that came towards me or inside of me when I looked at Facebook in July 2024. Now, the reasons were a little bit personal. It's nothing to do with the platform at all. It was more to do with what was going on politically in my country. I'm from Venezuela. There was a whole big election political situation in July of 2024. I will definitely not get into that right now. However, it made me feel like it just didn't feel right for me to be publishing and talking about marketing on Facebook when there was a lot of people on there that were talking about painful situations, let's call it. And so I just felt this very strong impulse within me that I needed to leave Facebook as a platform to build my organic or my brand organically or my business, right? Now, the thing is, I had built a very successful business on Facebook, literally had hit multiple 100K months through Facebook alone, basically. So making the decision to leave was definitely not an easy one, but it was a very simple one. It just, my gut was very strongly telling me I needed to make a change. Again, there's nothing wrong with Facebook as a platform. It is amazing, but there was something within me that felt like I needed to just move in a different direction. And so in September of 2024, I had an expert come into my community, so to my clients, and do a training on how to create your brand on LinkedIn. And that kind of prompted me to update my profile and prepare a lot of different things. And in October of 2024 is when I really made the decision that I was going to start very actively building my brand on LinkedIn and not so much on Facebook anymore. So that's literally what I did. I started creating content and, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how to build more engagement. And first couple of months of me starting that process, so basically October, November, December of 2024, I was trying to kind of figure out my way around it. But then January 2025 is when I really went all in within the platform. And since then, we have enrolled at least one client per month. In the last week, we've enrolled 3 clients that have come from LinkedIn alone. And it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting process to figure out the platform and to really make this transition, especially when you're coming from a very different platform that has kind of different rules. So I want to kind of tell you a little bit of some of the keys that have worked really well for us as we've shifted from Facebook over to LinkedIn in terms of marketing and the organic work that we're doing, and some of the things that you can think about for yourself. So, the first thing that you need to understand, and if you've been around for a while, you know what I'm going to say, is that your message needs to be on point, especially when we're talking about a platform like LinkedIn. There are different ways of talking, of creating content, of showing up on this platform. And so your content needs to be at the level of the audience that you want to attract. This is true for every platform, to be honest with you, but particularly on LinkedIn, I find that there are a lot of power buyers. There's a lot of people who are ready to invest, looking for solutions, and they're there either to network, to find clients, to build opportunities, or to hire their next coach or consultant or expert that they need within their life, their business, their career, whatever it is, right? And so your message has to be really on point. I find that for me, this has been something that has been very helpful because when you shift platforms, whether it is from Facebook to LinkedIn, or a lot of the work that I do on YouTube, for example, or any other platform, the message, when it is solid, it's going to hold up. And so for us, that transition was very easy in a way, right? Because we had a very solid message that we knew worked. We had proven that it was working over the years. And so it was very simple for me to just start creating content and kind of picking up, not where we had left off, but just picking up and continuing the conversation just like I had done on other platforms before. And so that made things very easy for us. For you, you really need to think about what your message is. How do you make sure that you actually stand out when there is so much content? And I find that while on Facebook, obviously, and on Instagram, on any platform, there's a lot of content, I find in a way that LinkedIn, there's just a lot of, let's say, competition, right? There's going to be a lot more people within your niche talking to that audience. And so if you don't have a very solid angle of mastery, if you don't have a very solid message that speaks to your buyers, to their problems, to the way in which they look at everything, you're going to have a really hard time truly differentiating yourself and standing out. And you're going to just be more noise in a land that is full of noise already. So having a very solid message is very important. And that's going to be reflected on your profile, obviously, making sure that the banner, that the way that you do your description, your about page, your featured section, all of your profile is really looking, very clear, professional, obviously, but the message is very solid and it sounds different to what everybody else is saying. So that's the first thing. And kind of tied to that, the second thing is just really making sure that your content is top notch. And so what that means for me is making sure that your content really creates a lot of demand. And you do that by delivering a lot of insights, like changing your audience's perspective, giving them a different way of looking at the problem and the solution. Obviously, this is what you do when you define and understand what your angle of mastery is. Like, this is literally what the angle of mastery is about. But when you create content that shakes things up and changes the conversation, that is when you get people to start paying attention to you even more. And so that part for me has been really important, getting very consistent with content creation and having a strategy, not just thinking, okay, I'm going to post every single day and that is it, but having a strategy around your content and kind of taking your audience through a journey through the post that you create. So we follow a process called the demand priming framework, for example, where every day of the week we're sharing a different type of post, different type of content, and it is very intentional and very strategic because we're taking people to take a very specific action, obviously, which would be to book the 15-minute assessment with us or to watch our 20-minute webinar, but we're moving them in that direction. And so every piece of content that we put out there, not only is it showing them and giving them insight on how to solve the problem and how to look at it in a different way, but it's also driving them to take a very specific action. So that is the second thing that I would really recommend, is being very strategic with what you do on LinkedIn. The third thing is learning how to play the game. Essentially, LinkedIn, and this is probably true for every platform, but I feel like with LinkedIn, It's just shown up in a different way for me, at least. LinkedIn is a platform where you have to really focus on building relationships with people. And so, I'm somebody, for example, who was used to not ever DMing anybody because it wasn't my thing on Facebook. I felt like Facebook, it came across as slimy. Whereas on LinkedIn, as long as you do it correctly, and we'll talk about this in a second a little bit more, you're going to be able to, it's actually part of the game. It's part of the platform. It's building relationships, engaging with people, commenting on their stuff, like literally being there for your audience and building this very strong community where you're able to support each other in a way, but at the same time, you're building that relationship. And so part of that is through DMs as well. So through private message. But what I have found is that the way that that works is when you do it from a place of true, authentic connection. If your goal is to DM 100 people per day and, like think about it as a numbers game, let me get as many people as possible in there and that's it. I don't think that this is going to work. I think it's going to be very difficult. I'm sure that there's people that do that successfully, but for us, we are very intentional with the messages that we send. Meaning, I'm really genuinely trying to build connections, build relationships with people, have conversations, and really build value, serving people as much as possible, whether that's through content, whether that's through commenting, whether that is through private messages and the work that we're doing there. And so, because of that, we have really been able to build a very strong presence in a very short amount of time. We've been able to almost triple the amount of followers that we had from the moment that we joined in October. Great, get great engagement, great reach, great following. But more than that, for me, I don't really care as much for like the vanity metrics and telling you like I have however many followers, or like I don't think that that matters as much. For me, what matters more are the results. And being able to look at the last 7 days and say, okay, we just enrolled 3 different clients that came from LinkedIn, and they came in from different ways, whether it was engaging with my content or through private conversations or through recommendations or just different things that are happening. That is what we're looking for. Having these people come to us where I'm not kind of forcing myself in and being like, let's have a conversation, let's hop on a call, but it being something that is very natural because of the value we're naturally creating within the platform. So, all that to say, I feel like LinkedIn is a very strong and powerful platform. I've had a great experience with it. And if you're planning on moving into LinkedIn, or you already are in LinkedIn right now, I really recommend making sure that your message is solid, really clear, very powerful angle of mastery, that you're creating content that shifts your audience's perspective. You're giving them insights. You're being very strategic with what you create, and you focus on building those relationships that are really there to take things into a different level. It's not just about being transactional and getting the call as fast as possible, but about taking the time to really building those relationships with people as much as possible. If you want to know if your message is really set up for success and how you can make sure to make it sound and feel different, go to brandmessagesession.com right now. You can find the link underneath this episode as well, and make sure you book that 15-minute session with me, because on that call, I will literally take a look at your message, whether that is your website or your LinkedIn profile, if you're looking to create that there as well. And I will give you exactly the feedback on what to say, what to do to make sure that you're speaking to power buyers and that your angle of mastery is coming across in a very clear and solid way. So make sure you book that. And if you want to understand a little bit more about how to speak to power buyers and how to understand what your angle of mastery is, go to readytoinvestclients.com to sign up for my quick 20-minute training on how to speak to power buyers by leveraging your angle of mastery. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and follow me at Fabi Paolini everywhere. Follow me on LinkedIn as well. Let me know in the comments below if you're in the process of transitioning from Facebook to LinkedIn and what some of the questions you have around the platform are, and I will see you in another week. Bye.